Timing is at the core of every real-time fighting game, and the Monster Hunter series really understands this. Your attacks are careful and deliberate. When using the Greatsword, for example, you can come in with a slow overhead swing. You can also charge this swing, making it even slower, but deal much more damage. Even with a fast weapon like the dual swords, you still need to commit to a flurry of attacks before control is returned to you. The monsters you fight also have a deliberate nature. Each of their attacks are telegraphed, with the most powerful attacks having the biggest tells. When a monster winds up like this, you know you need to get out of the way. So to win, the player must get close to the monster and attack it. But the player also has to move away from the monster to avoid getting squished and defeated. This creates a tension at the heart of the combat system. When do I move in, and when do I step back? This back and forth between attacking and evading creates a core rhythm that the player needs to follow. In Japan, some players call this Tachimawari. For this video, we can call it the attack-evade rhythm. The cool thing about this rhythm is how it joins risk and reward. If you can just barely avoid the monster's attack, you'll be in the perfect position to respond with your own counterattack. And if you use one of your powerful moves, you'll deal a lot more damage, but you'll also have a smaller window to avoid the monster's next attack. Skilled players will often stay as close to the monster as possible, using their knowledge of its attack patterns to carefully stay inside of the safe zones. In short, to fight better, the player also has to take on more danger. You can make an engaging fighting game just by using this kind of attack-evade rhythm. Fury, a 2016 boss rush game, uses it to great effect, alternating the player between dodging hundreds of bullets and fighting close up with their sword. But what really sets Monster Hunter apart is the supporting rhythms that encourage you to mix up how you play. Here are some examples. To attack the monster, you have to unsheath your weapon, but this also makes you slower and less maneuverable. You can get your mobility back by sheathing your weapon, but this takes a while. To follow the attack-evade rhythm closely, the player needs to sheath and unsheath their weapon with good timing. Your weapon also gradually loses sharpness over time. Blunter weapons deal less damage and can even bounce off some parts of the monster. To get your sharpness back, you need to stop and use a whetstone. This leaves you completely defenseless for several seconds, which is quite a long time when you're fighting a dinosaur. So sharpening needs to be carefully slotted in when you have a big opening. When your health runs out, you will faint and lose one of your quest attempts. To stop this from happening, the player can eat consumable healing items like potions. But to heal, your hunter has to actually drink the potion, slowing you down for a little while. You can evade out of this animation, but then you don't get the full effect of the heal, and you still lose one of your finite healing resources. So being low on health puts you on the back foot, not just because you're closer to death, but also because you need to evade the monster until you can find a big enough opening to heal up. These supporting rhythms mean that the player won't always be at maximum strength. You have to maintain your weapons and your health, while also following the core attack-evade rhythm. Lining up a powerful attack with maximum sharpness and at full health requires some planning and skill. The monsters also have their own rhythms. After dealing enough damage to a monster, it will get enraged. Its attacks become faster and stronger and have shorter pauses between them. Fighting an enraged monster is significantly harder than usual because your timing needs to be much more precise. But being enraged makes the monster use up more stamina, and eventually it'll become tired. Its attacks will then be slower and weaker, and the monster will spend a lot of time standing still trying to catch its breath. This gives the player a much bigger opening than they would normally have, letting them use their most powerful moves and deal a lot of damage. If the player focuses enough damage onto a particular part of the monster, they can break it. This creates optional sub-challenges where players can try to get specific breaks to earn bonus rewards. Some parts also impact the monster's ability to fight you. For example, cutting off the tail will reduce the range of all tail-based attacks. Aiming for a particular part of the monster can lead players to develop different strategies. If you can attack a monster while you're in the air, you'll have a chance to mount it. If you complete the mount successfully, you'll then topple the monster, leaving it completely defenseless for a good while. This can also help with targeting parts on the monster that are normally quite high up. These rhythms make the fight feel much more fair. The monster might be 50 times your size, but just like the player, it still has periods of relative strength and weakness. In a way, the monster mirrors many of your own mechanics. But the environments are where Monster Hunter World really improves on previous games in the series. The maps have been filled with small animals that you can trigger. Paratoads will paralyze the monster if you lure it into their fumes. Other creatures can stun a monster or poison it or send it to sleep. Some areas also have ledges to help you mount the monster or deep water that slows you down. Over the course of a hunt, monsters will move from one area to another. In previous games, each area was a separate level. When you moved from one area to the next, you would teleport there. This was pretty jarring, and it led to some cheesy strategies like quickly warping into the next area so you could heal up, and then teleporting back in to fight it again. This was bad because it let the player completely avoid the attack-evade rhythm for a while. But in Monster Hunter World, the areas have all been joined into a single large map. This way, the player has to put a lot more effort into escaping. In previous games, you sometimes had to fight two monsters in the same area. This often felt unfair because the monsters would team up and they'd focus all their attention on you. The camera controls also made it difficult to see what both monsters were doing at the same time. But now, if you can lure monsters into the same area, they'll actually fight each other. And this makes your life a lot easier, and it's also just really cool to watch. And this encourages the player to make good use of the map. In short, the game's many combat mechanics combine to create intricately overlapping rhythms. The player won't have to deal with all of these at the same time, but even just a few can really shake up how you play. Suppose the monster is tired and by a ledge, but your weapon is blunt. The player might want to go for the mount, but if they can squeeze in a sharpen first, they'll get much more value out of it. Or suppose the monster is enraged and you're on low health, but there's also a Paratoad in the area. You could run away to heal, but you could also try to trap it with the Paratoad, moving you into danger, but also giving you a bigger chance to turn the tables. It's always incredibly satisfying when you manage to line up all these different mechanics with just the right timing. The game is full of these decision points, where the player needs to quickly gauge whether they have enough time for each option. Taken together with stunning visuals and an engaging theme, Monster Hunter World manages, in my opinion, to create some of the most tense and exciting combat found anywhere in gaming. To make this video, I used clips from the official Monster Hunter channel and also from these Let's Players. The links to all of their channels are in the description. This video isn't my usual kind of content. My channel is normally dedicated to my own game, Patch Quest. You play as an explorer on a dangerous, treasure-filled island. The game takes inspiration from roguelikes by shuffling the game map so that you always face a fresh set of challenges. You can watch this video to learn about the latest changes, and you can get the game for free by following the link in the description. Developing Patch Quest takes up most of my time, but if you'd like to see more of these game design videos, leave me a like to let me know. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.